Right. So thank you all for coming. It's kind of a weird thing to say, uh, but I do genuinely feel that just gratitude for all your presence in this class. So, many of you have been coming for years, and it's just, you feel like part of my life in a certain way. And so I have that experience as part of teaching. And I'm excited about this topic. Um, As is often the case when I give a name to a class, I don't always know right away what it is I'm going to say about it, but something in me is really called to the topic. I know after the last class we did spaciousness, which I loved, but like tenderness fills something out that the word spaciousness doesn't. And I thought of it as really kind of like the juice of life lies in tenderness. And what I mean by tenderness is, at least the way that I'm thinking of it in terms of approaching this class, but certainly there are other meanings that we can go into. But just that ability to be touched and moved by whatever we encounter in our life. Be touched and moved. It would be a shame, really, to be in life and be too insensitive, to have what's here not in some way kind of touch us, make us quiver a little bit. The heart has the ability to kind of quiver in its moments of tenderness. And so it's that quality that really was inspiring me. And certainly the spring gives me sort of visual cues in terms of these little plants. I started my seedlings, and these little plants just kind of like pull their heads out of the ground, and they're very delicate in a certain way, and yet they're tough. I left, they're cold hardy, and I put them out on the deck and bring them in every night. But I forgot them one night, the poor little dears, and it was a freezing night, and the soil on top of them was a little icy, and they were fine. They did just fine. So they look really tender, but they're tough. They're tough little critters. They've been through a lot, not just in their personal life, but in their ancestry and their evolution. And they have a resilience to them and a will to live, and all of those qualities, which I want to include in tenderness. There's a certain sense of tenderness is certainly a vulnerable. And as we go through the body, part of the reason I wanted to go through the body with such detail tonight, and I might continue that kind of central channel, the sense of the squishiness of the body that way. There's a vulnerability to it, but there's an incredible resilience too, to all of these tissues. It's not so easy to mess with them, and so even though the body is soft, it's knitted together in a way that's rather sturdy, I have to say. Like it's remarkable how sturdy the body is. And those moments when I've fallen and kind of like bounced, my bones kind of bounce on the ground, and I'm kind of like, I know sometimes you don't bounce and sometimes things break, but I'm also impressed with the resilience and strength of the body in its tenderness, in its the wonderful aspect of it. And of course, it feels to me like the tenderness of the body is a bit more frontal. The softer things are kind of in front, especially the belly. And maybe the more muscular, kind of bony things are a bit more in the back. So there's a kind of a polarity of a certain sort in the body, but it's not rigid. It's not a fixed kind of thing. It's just a little bit more of a sense of that. So I invite you in this class to, to do this sort of embodiment in the meditation. And so I'm glad that that got recorded. I didn't forget to record it, so you can listen to it through the week and gain that sort of connection with the soft kind of body that you are. And in terms of thinking about this first class, what I really wanted to mention, the first thing that I'll mention that came to me, in order for us to really drop into the tenderness that we are, that aspect of our being, the word came, we have to de-instrumentalize the body and de-instrumentalize life. What do I mean by that? We have this tendency to turn people and things into something that they become a means to our goals in various ways. And that can sound rather callous, and we can be that way. When we're at work, we've got a job to do. And so there's a certain amount of kind of like dealing with people to get stuff done. And so that's what I mean by instrumentalize. We instrumentalize the body. The body's just a thing to get us from here to there. The body's just a thing to, to feed and be in good shape so that it can do all the things we want it to do. So if we begin with the body as a place to de-instrumentalize, and I think it's a great place to begin. When we meditate, we kind of take it off of that role. We're not going through and feeling the body for something else. I mean, it could be. You could instrumentalize it. Okay, this is a good way to become more calm, and I want calm. But this is a good way to become whatever. But I invite you to see if you can feel the shift when what matters is just the being of something and not its usefulness. And so try that out with the body. And so it's a kind of a presence, a deep presence and listening. And sometimes we listen to the body for information. And we can certainly do that. I think that's definitely a part of this class in tenderness. But just listening in order to be with this miraculous thing that we are, this human body, which is performing, I don't know how many, hundreds of thousands of tasks in every minute to keep us alive. And our brains are doing thousands of tasks in each minute in order for us to be able to even listen to this class and understand what I'm saying and to turn the sounds that are being heard into words. The words don't really exist out there, They're waves that get interpreted and turned into meaning. And there's just a whole lot of things that have to happen. So you all know this. We're taking the time to de-instrumentalize the body. I haven't thought of the right positive word, of course, other than feel, be present. I haven't quite found the great word that goes with de-instrumentalize. To do this, what's so important about this is relaxing the grasping that's so much of a part of our minds. Our minds are so full of craving and grasping. They want to get something. They want to get at something. They want to keep something. And so all of that energy in our minds really stands in the way of tenderness. When we're really in a kind of a grasping place and we want to get from here to there, it's very hard to be tender. in that attitude. And so in the midst of our grasping, in the midst of that, and I kind of lump in there too, pushing away the things we don't want, along with kind of like grasping. I got to get my hands in the picture, grasping the things we wanted, pushing things away we don't want. It's very hard to be tender in that. And so we have to change our relationship with things, change our relationship beginning with ourself, with our own body and our own being. It's very hard to be tender with the people in your life when you're not tender with yourself. You may find yourself inadvertently being callous to their needs and to their very being because you're callous to your own needs and being. So we're opening that up of just being willing to be with the body, to be with the body. You've been doing this all along in your meditation practice. I'm actually not telling you to do anything new, just putting it in different words, which I find helpful with things we've been doing for a long time to actually reconceive of them and make them fresh. So when we take our lives, our bodies, the people who we're with, the things we interact with, off of the instrumental relationship, they open up, they awaken, I was doing this with a tool of mine, and tools, by the very word, they're kind of instruments, right? They're just something to get something done. My little clippers, I was out, doing some pruning of fruit trees, and it was like, okay, I could actually take a moment to be present with these clippers and to watch them go through this little twig in a different way, actually see what's actually happening. And of course I was getting something done. I could just look at the things, but I was getting something done, but there was a different relationship to it. It wasn't just about getting those peach trees pruned. It was about seeing what this little tool does. And there was a little bit of wonder to it. So that's what I'm talking about. So de-instrumentalize came to me as a word that can be helpful for tenderizing your experience. The second is to resensitize. I think we are extraordinarily sensitive instruments. I don't think that's unique to human beings. I think that animals are extraordinarily sensitive instruments. I think plants are extraordinarily sensitive instruments. I think fungi are extraordinarily sensitive instruments. And I bet if you got down there to the nematodes and the little critters in the earth, they have a whole life. They have a whole world that they live in. And they're sensitive to their environment. So that's what I'm inviting us to do. We don't really exactly know what it's like to be a plant and to be sensitive the way a plant is to the chemicals in the ground and the chemicals in the air and the qualities of the light. We can imagine it. We can't quite step into them and be them, though I have to say, part of me would like to. What we're given really is this human form, this human life. And it would be a shame to not fully step into the body, not to fully sensitize ourselves to it. We were born this way. And when you're around children, you can sense that. Their bodies are still pretty soft. Their hearts are still pretty soft. And they're full of life. And something happens. we bump up against things. And so there's a tendency, I think, as we grow, as we get older, it's already present by the time we go to school, but in school does it even more to us. There's a tendency to shut down our sensitivity. There's this tendency to go numb and be somewhat less than what we actually are in the world. To not notice things, to kind of close our eyes metaphorically, to close our pores, to close our intuitions, and life becomes poorer for it. So I've often thought of meditation as a path of reclaiming our birthright of sensitivity. And so that's the second thing that I would want to say about tenderness, is that it's really our birthright to be tender. You know, and it's the truth, and it's a shame in some way that the world is as brutal as it is to us, is insensitive to us. And I think a large part of that is the way we instrumentalize our world economically and other ways. And then we as human beings become treated as sort of vehicles of economy, if I can put it that way. You know, the school system is designed after the factory system, with bells, time schedules, breaks. That's no accident. Think of what a profound conditioner of human experience the modern school system is. But I'm not sure that it was designed for tenderness. I'm sure many moments of tenderness happen there, and God bless the teachers who come there with their open hearts and deal with enormous difficulties in the current environment. But nonetheless, the system itself may not really be designed for tenderness. The work life that you have may not be designed for it. Goodness, our political life is certainly not designed for it. And there's a certain way, I think, because of this, because of the environment, because of the conditioning we're in, we abandon our tenderness. We may even feel a little despair about it, thinking it has no place here. Of course, it has a place here. You know, and one of the things that I want to talk about in this class, not so much tonight, but is how to be tender in the face of life as it is. To be tender requires a certain way for our nervous system to feel safe. And that's a tall order, I have to say, because there's a lot that jars us about life. And so part of what we'll be talking about is resilience, you know, how to spring back, how to be like those leek and Brussels sprout seedlings that go through the frost very early in their life out in a tray, which isn't actually what they were evolved to do, evolved to be in the ground where their little roots don't get cold so fast. But somehow, you know, they do that and they have this sort of resiliency. But I think they don't shut their sensitivity down. So anyway, that I think is part of the challenge of how to represent that. And I'm, you know, I have to ask your help in that. You know, you all have many years of wisdom in you. And perhaps you, like me, have come to see this as one of the central challenges of life is how to live tenderly with it, how to have the heart be what it was designed to be in its sensitivity and its ability to be moved and touched by the world we're in, how to be that and not to just be shocked and buffeted, not to be wounded, or if we are wounded, how to recover. I'll maybe leave you with this thought. Oscar Wilde, who had his own suffering in life as a gay man in Victorian England, where it was actually illegal to be who he was. He said, someone asked him if being in prison, he was in prison, by the way, for who he was, if being in prison broke his heart. I don't remember exactly how he set this line up, but I think basically he dismissed the concern about his heart being broken by saying, hearts are made to be broken. And I remember when I first heard this, it was kind of a shock. I didn't like it. I have to say, I didn't like hearing it. Something in me was rebelling against the truth of it, but I see that it's true. That if we are to discover the true nature of tenderness, we have to also accept this aspect of it, that our very tenderness goes into shock and breaks. There can be a kind of brittleness sometimes in our sensitivity. And yet it's made to be that way. Something happens, something becomes tempered. And at the age that you are, whatever that age is, we're all adults. The tenderness we knew as children, left us perhaps. But we can actually reclaim something. We can actually reclaim our birthright. But we do it not naively, I think. We do it with a deeper sense of its preciousness for the very fact that we know the fragility of it. And we know the shocks. We may be experiencing them daily in our lives still. I don't know that I even have to put that in that tense, It's the case that we're experiencing these. And yet, what we are is still something very tender. We can hide that, even hide that from ourselves, but it's actually right in the core of our nature. All right, so that's enough talk for tonight.